Finally, a really top-notch Wednesday show here at Catholic Answers Live. We are not mailing it in today. We have two superstar guests for you, and especially as we approach the anniversary of the awful Roe versus Wade decision, we have two of the finest pro-life speakers we have ever met here at Catholic Answers. Second hour, Stephanie Gray Connors from Love Unleashes Life will be here, and we're going to talk about how to make precise pro-life arguments with her. But just making the arguments is only part of being fully pro-life, which is something as Catholics that we hope to be, we want to be. Being fully pro-life also means being able to listen to other people, being able to be in the places where there's the kind of anguish and upset that leads people to make decisions that maybe they may later regret. And our guest this hour is part of, I'm going to say, one of the world's top 10 organizations. I'm putting in the top 10 organizations, the Sisters for Life, Sister Stella Maris, former naval officer, now Sister of Life in Denver, Colorado. Thanks for being with us, Sister.
Oh, it's good to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So we're going to talk a bit about pro-life in the trenches, because that is your experience, is being right there on the front lines. If you would like to get in on the conversation with Sister Stella Maris, 888-318-7884, the number. Whether you're a Christian person or not, whether you're a pro-life person or not, you are welcome here. 888-318-7884. So maybe we should just start with this. What do you do as a Sister of Life? What is your vocation as a Sister of Life?
Sure. Yeah, as Sisters of Life, we believe that every person is sacred, unique, and unrepeatable. And we know that each person is infinitely loved by God. But going through this world, it's very easy to forget that. So as Sisters of Life, one of our biggest missions is simply to remind the world that in each person in it, that they are known and loved and chosen by God, and that they bear His image. So that's just an important vision that we have when approaching other people. So we share this vision in a lot of ways, but we work with women who are pregnant in difficult situations. We have a convent where we invite pregnant women to live with us. We also do a very precious and beautiful work of journeying with women who are suffering after the experience of abortion, to help them experience God's mercy and to live in the freedom that Jesus wants for all of us. And then also here, in Colorado, we have a mission of evangelization on college campuses, bringing God's plan for life and love to university campuses, and that's working with young women. So we just want every person to know that their lives have value and meaning, and that they are known and loved by God.
888-318-7884, our number. This is one of the things that I think, I know I have fallen into this at times. You can get angry as a pro-life person, and then all of a sudden you're defending the life of the unborn person, but at the same time you're disrespecting the life of the person you're talking to about it, or to the people you're talking to about it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. As I was praying about this call and this time on the radio with you, I was thinking about that. You know, St. Paul tells us that unless we do things with love, we're clanging gongs or clashing cymbals. And so I think it's a daily work of each one of us to have our vision transformed and to have our minds renewed, and to look upon each person that I encounter as someone who's loved by God, whose life has meaning. Even though I may think what they believe and the way they live and the way they act is way beneath their dignity, and I don't agree with it, I can still begin to kind of peel away the levels of hardness that they might have in their heart by just expressing that love to them, by showing that I care about them genuinely, that I don't have an agenda.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's hard for a lot of us who think of ourselves as pro-life, is not to have the agenda rather than the humanity to reach out to other people. And this is something that really is a key central part of the charism of your order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. And it's that a lot of the times, I mean, believe me, there's so much work to be done in the way of evangelization and speaking the truth and clarifying the truth over and over again to people. But a lot of our work and the way we approach it is that we don't think so much as we're fighting against an evil, that is abortion, which is an evil, but that we're building up a good. So building the culture of life. And St. John of the Cross said it so beautifully and so well. Where there's not love, put love, and there you will find love. And love is creative. Love looks for the good. Love finds ways and entries into human hearts, and it has a transforming power. And so, yeah, that's some of our attitude. Yeah.
We're talking about being pro-life in the trenches, on the ground, where the rubber meets the road, with Sister Maristella, who does that each day. What do you think we, say I'm listening now, I'm a person listening now, and I think I would actually, where I am, in my station in life, whether I'm a young single person or maybe a very busy person in the middle of life, or I'm a senior, but I would like to do what Sister Maristella is talking about. I would like to foster this culture of life by encounter with other people. What can you tell us about how practically you go about doing that, and that you advise other people to go about doing that?
Yeah, I think it really begins, in a recognition of my own dignity, in my own goodness, knowing that my life has meaning, and that I am continuously held in a gaze of love by God. And as we receive that love, and that into our souls, there's a natural desire to share that with others in a way that we might not be able to articulate, but in a way that we look upon the other person as someone else who's been created in this way, in goodness, and that their life has meaning. So I think it begins with just asking the Holy Spirit to transform our vision. And once we do that, God will put people in our lives right away. The world is starving for love. People are starving to be loved for who they are, not what they can do or produce, but simply for who they are. That's a need of the human heart. And if we ask the Lord to allow us to do that, He'll quickly put people in our paths.
It's funny when you say that, though. I actually feel a little tinge of nervousness, because I know the Lord does answer prayers. I better be ready to love somebody if I ask Him to put someone who needs love in my path.
Right. Well, and the good news is too that we don't have to rely on our own strength. We can do it with the Lord wants to do this in us and through us and with us. And He's promised us the Holy Spirit. He's promised to be with us in this work. Yeah, and it's true. Sometimes love is enormously demanding, and it's a great work. And sometimes it's even the most difficult thing is to love the person next to me. I live with my sister, spouses. Those things are very difficult, but we have the promise of God's gift of the Holy Spirit to help us in those things. 888-318-7884. We're talking about being pro-life in the trenches this hour with Sister Maristella, who has never failed when she comes here to talk with us, to fill us with a renewed sense of wanting to be not just people who explain and defend the faith, but people who personally share the faith by loving other people, which whenever we're off that path, we're on the wrong path. I mean, we may be doing the best we can, but we're the right path is the path of love. And if you'd like to talk about how to get on that path, how to share a love of life, an embrace of life, how to help people come out of the culture of death into a loving embrace of life. We're talking about pro-life in the trenches this hour with our friend Sister Maristella from the Sisters of Life. The number is 888-318-7884. I have kept callers waiting, and I will get to you right after the break because we got to take a quick break. 888-318-7884. Before I send you off to the break, The Words of Eternal Life, Jimmy's really lovely little book that has just come out from Jimmy Akin, The Words of Eternal Life, True Happiness and Where to Find It. I think it's a book that can really break through a lot of the noise and the despair, and we'd like to give it to you for free. You just have to go to Catholic.com, and for donors, the book is free. Words of Eternal Life, The Words of Eternal Life, True Happiness and Where to Find It. Jimmy Akin's lovely new invitation to come back and be in contact with Jesus after a year in which a lot of us have lost that contact by, in many cases, no fault of our own. You can get it for free over at Catholic.com.
Call us now with your question on Catholic Answers Live.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
Hey, it's Wednesday, and that means a new episode of our podcast, Catholic Answers Focus, has dropped. You can check it out at CatholicAnswersFocus.com or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Catholic Answers Focus, the world's premier podcast on Catholic apologetics, now available every Wednesday at CatholicAnswersFocus.com.
Unplanned, the true story of Abby Johnson.
I would be the youngest director in Planned Parenthood history.
She believed in a woman's right to choose.
I've had an abortion myself, so I don't have any problem with another woman making the same decision.
Until the day she saw something that changed everything.
Tiny, perfect little baby. And then it was just gone.
Now she's pulling back the curtain on the abortion industry. Unplanned.
Available at EWTNRC.com and the EWTN app.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Sister Maristella is here with us this hour from the Sisters of Life, and we're talking about being pro-life in the trenches. If you have questions about how to be a fully engaged pro-life person in the trenches, 888-318-7884 is the number. Before I go to callers, let me let you know that sistersoflife.org is their website. You can find out all about the Sisters of Life at sistersoflife.org. And if you are a young woman feeling that call, sistersoflife.org right now. Don't let it pass. You can also find online pregnancy resources, post-abortion healing, and if you are facing a crisis pregnancy and you would like someone to talk to, they have a phone number, 877-777-1277. It's a lot of sevens. Sistersoflife.org. Sister Maristella, thanks again for being with us. Shall we go to the phones?
Sounds good.
Okay. You weren't sure there for a second. I don't know. All right, we'll go to the phones. Hunter in North Dakota listening on Real Presence Radio. You're first up. Your question, please, for Sister Maristella.
Hello, Sister Maristella. My question is, how do we do better at encountering our fellow men and women before they end up, say, in a crisis pregnancy? How do we do better to encounter them and encourage, say, a life of virtue instead of what the culture tries to give us?
Sister, do we have? I think we had Hunter, you broke the system. Sister froze. 888-318-7884 is the number. We got to get Sister. There we go, Sister Maristella.
Okay, I'm back.
So
Sorry
you
about that.
you heard that's okay. I thought you took a nap for a minute. I thought, wow, that's interesting. They really are low key, these sisters. But did you hear the question, or do you need me to repeat it?
Please repeat it. I heard the first part of it.
Hunter in North Dakota was wondering about how to encourage fellow young men and women to resist the culture's ideas and embrace a life of chastity, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's a really great question because, and this is what our work a lot right now is on university campuses, working with young men and women to help them. Because the story that the world presents is it doesn't matter what you choose. It doesn't matter what you do. You can do whatever you want with your body. And that has led to so much heartache and sorrow. And so how do we present another vision of life, another way to live, another way? I think so much of it is when Christians are really joyful and they live lives of meaning, I think that overflows and is very compelling in itself. And I think in general, people want their lives to matter. They want to know that they want to make good choices. And so I think it's somehow communicating that, and whatever circle of influence you have, whatever it may be, if it's just within your family, teaching your children well, or in your workplace, finding ways to show people that their lives have meaning, that and the choices they make matter, that love is between men and women in marriage, married love is meant to be for men and women in marriage. And so I think that just simple ways in our circle of influence can be very powerful and very compelling.
Hunter, how's that?
That's great. Thank you, Sister.
You're welcome.
Let's go to Charlie in Madrid, Louisiana, listening on AM 690. Charlie, go ahead with your question for Sister Maristella. Sorry. Now I had a little brain cramp. Go ahead, Charlie.
Hi. Yes, Am I on the air with you?
You are on the air with Sister. Yes, Charlie.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't think the Right to Life should wait to test out the new court. My wife doesn't think the court has been tested out either, and they should get a case before the court as soon as possible to reverse Roe v. Wade. Also, to put prayer back in the schools. If the Supreme Court rules that unborn babies are persons in overturning Roe v. Wade, you heard of the personhood bill, I believe. I'm sure you did. That if the Supreme Court rules unborn babies are persons, then I really believe every pro-abortion law, including state laws, would fall, because on EWTN, a philosopher said, we have a law that protects the lives of persons, therefore they must not be persons.
Right. That's Charlie. But you started out by saying we shouldn't wait. Is that what you wanted Sister to comment on? We shouldn't wait for the overturning of Roe v. Wade?
Well, that's one of the things, but I just wanted to call, at a minimum, they should reverse Roe v. Wade. But if they define them as persons, then I think even state pro-abortion laws would fall. And yeah, the sister can comment on that. No
okay, let's let her do that. Sister, go ahead.
Yeah. No, thank you, Charlie. I think that is a very thoughtful comment and question, and I really appreciate that. I'm so glad that there's many Americans like you who believe in the dignity of the human person and each person, born and unborn. Yeah, it's a good. I do hope that Roe v. Wade is overturned, and I do hope for everything you spoke of. But even if the courts do rule in this way, even if the laws do change, it still leaves us to wonder what is happening in the human heart.
Yeah.
Or have hearts changed? Because that's where culture has really shifted and begins to move, and you see real genuine change in the culture. So yeah, I think even if Roe v. Wade were overturned, there would still be so many men and women who have not yet changed their vision of reality, of understanding the other person or recognizing the dignity of the human person. And then also we have so many people in our culture who've been wounded by the culture of death, who need deep healing, who need to be profoundly healed. And so that's our great work, to be able to do that.
It does worry me sometimes that we, and again, I will confess to myself that this idea that we become so focused on reforming the law, especially overturning Roe v. Wade, which would be a great good, I do not deny that at all, that we think that that's our work, and that's the beginning maybe of a certain kind of work. But as you said, the culture has... I would say, even if Roe versus Wade were overturned, I would use a kind of analogy. You might think of it as like, a communist country after 50 years of communism. Well, you don't come out of that and just say, well, we're all better. There's tremendous work to do for healing and help.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think just, generations of women who are suffering after abortion, those women need care. And they need to be welcomed into the church with love.
Praise God.
To hear that God loves them, the church loves them, and then young people who've been told, that their bodies, it doesn't matter what they do. That work will take time, and but it's a wonderful work, because there's nothing more powerful than watching Jesus redeem a soul. There's nothing more beautiful than seeing someone who's maybe been dead to sin to be resurrected to new life. It's just a stunning and incredible thing.
Sister Maristella is our guest. She is of the order, the Sisters of Life, where she works in their Denver house. Now, I said a former naval officer. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yes, I graduated from the Naval Academy, and then I served in the Navy for 5 years, and then I entered religious life.
I just love that. That's pretty cool. Charlie, thanks very much for the question. I hope that was helpful to you. Let's go to Rochester, New York. Lily, listening on the station of The Cross. You are up next. Go ahead with your question for Sister Maristella.
Hi. So So I've been a Christian for about a year, and I grew up extremely liberal. My mom is an Episcopalian priest, and my dad is actually an abortion provider. He's an OBGYN, but he performs abortions all the time. And I've only been pro-choice for as long as I've been a Christian, which is a huge shift in my family, because I grew up in the church, close, but really I grew up in a really, really progressive church. And it's been a huge confusion for my family, and pretty much my question is, how do I lovingly and peacefully, salt-lightingly, I think you understand, bring the pro-life view to the table? It's not something my family's used to at all, and it's really confusing for them. And to me, it makes perfect sense now that I know Christ, but to them, it's like blasphemy. And I just need help. I need, encouragement on how to stay steadfast. I haven't shifted on my view just because of them. I've really doubled down, and I love the zeal of the Catholic faith for, the unborn. I've been considering Catholicism for about a month, and I've been attending, at Irenaeus House in the city of Rochester, which has been really special. And I'm going to go to my first Catholic Mass on Sunday as well. And I've been invited to go to our Planned Parenthood to, give out love to those who are considering abortion. But pretty much, it's really scary for me. I mean, I used to be so pro-abortion, and now it's makes me sick. And I just want to love my family through that.
God bless you, Lily. You are a delight to listen to you talk. Sister, your response to Lily?
Well, first of all, Lily, I just want to say you must have so much courage in that heart of yours to be able to, and courage and humility that you're willing to say, I believe these things for so many years, and now I've changed and I see things differently. Because I've met Christ, my life is different, and I see the world and other people differently. I mean, that's amazing. So thank you for sharing that with us. That gives so many of us hope and belief. It increases our faith in the power of Christ and his love for each soul. So I don't know. I mean, with your family, sometimes they say our families are the most difficult to evangelize. No prophet is accepted in his own town or his own place. But I don't think that everyone is willing to listen to someone else's testimony, to just share your experience. Maybe even when, you mentioned that you'll be going to pray outside of an abortion clinic coming up. Something that I could share that was very powerful in my life was the first time I prayed outside of an abortion clinic. It changed the whole experience for me because I saw that these were women walking in, sometimes being dragged in, very humiliated, very humble, very fearful, very frightened. And that just helped me to understand that what woman was made for, that women actually desire to choose life. It's innate and part of our being. So to just maybe if you could share some of your experience eventually with your family, very gently and with humility. And I think that's just always a compelling witness.
What do you think, Lily?
Thank you. That sounds wonderful. Thank you so much, sister. You've even given me more courage to do so, because I was very scared to go out to the abortion clinics, but now I feel that really helped. Now I feel like that was what I needed. The Lord, thank you, Jesus.
Lily, I feel like you are what we needed today. You are just delight. Check out sistersoflife.org. They've got all kinds of stuff there that will help you continue on your journey. Sistersoflife.org. Sister Maristella is our guest from the sistersoflife.org, and we're talking about being pro-life in the trenches, and that's really what Lily is talking about. That's what we mean by dealing with those who are near you, whether it's in workplaces can be terrifying to be a pro-life person for many people. Certainly here in California, in many of these tech companies, every now and then we'll hear from a pro-life person who works at one of these big tech companies, and it's scary for them. There's a sense of almost you're going against humanity by being a pro-life person.
No, I think you're totally, completely right. I've heard that story from many people and in many situations. And but isn't it interesting when someone in the workplace has a baby? There's a sense of joy that people experience.
Right.
And so I don't know, somehow to tap into that and to highlight that. And maybe in the workplace, that's one of the things that can kind of transform that culture to make it possible for women to have good maternity leave, to celebrate when women are pregnant, to really draw attention to that and to highlight the good that's already there. That can be powerful for people.
Is this something that you do? I mean, because I'm sure you deal with many women who didn't intend to be pregnant. This is not their plan, so to speak. Do you try to help them celebrate that too? I mean, that this is not all bad. A baby's good.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Eventually, we can get there.
I see what you mean.
Because sometimes the first thing is you just have to be with them and for them as they go through the fear, as they go through the grief and sorrow that maybe the plans they had for their life are now dramatically changed. They've been completely interrupted. And it takes a lot of courage to change and to change that view and to move. And it takes time.
Sister Maristella, our guest, you're welcome to call and get in on the conversation, whether you are a pro-life person or not, whether you are a Christian person or not. We are talking about being pro-life in the trenches with one of the sisters who has devoted her life to being pro-life in the trenches with the Sisters of Life. Our number, 888-318-7884.
We're here for you. Call now. Catholic Answers Live.
If you spend any time on Twitter, Facebook, or mainstream media, you're probably familiar with the litany of slogans that skeptics employ to rescue you from the foolish belief that God exists. The constant onslaught seems to leave people with the idea that they have no alternative but to embrace atheism. How can a Christian respond? In One Less God Than You, John DeRosa breaks down 20 of the most common atheist challenges and shows you how to craft effective answers. Atheism is more aggressive and widespread than ever. Read One Less God Than You and prepare yourself to respond with the joyful truth that God is real. To get your copy of One Less God Than You, visit shop.catholic.com today or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
To many people, even many Christians, purgatory is a fantasy, or worse, a wicked lie invented by the church to make salvation complicated and keep people in fear. But I'm here to tell you that purgatory is fact, not fiction. The Bible supports it, Christians have historically believed in it, and it makes theological sense. In my new book, Purgatory is for Real, I provide the evidence and reasoning to help you understand this controversial doctrine and demonstrate how it's actually a joyful, hopeful reality, not something shadowy and mysterious, but a sign of God's love and mercy. To get your copy of Purgatory is for Real, visit shop.catholic.com today or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Each January, all throughout the secular media, we get a certain narrative about the meaning of the Roe versus Wade decision and about why that's positive and liberating and empowering, and we don't believe that narrative. We believe it's here at Catholic Answers. We believe that the Roe versus Wade decision is one of the worst moments in the history of our country's judicial life, one that must be reversed, so that we can get on with the job of, at least on the government side, we can get on with the job of building a culture of life. Many people already on with the job of building a culture of life in many other ways, despite the fact that the law has become so unjust in that area. Among the great institutions for doing that is the Sisters of Life. They are wonderful people. They do wonderful work. You can find out all about them at sistersoflife.org. And we have Sister Maristella from the Sisters of Life here with us this hour to talk about being pro-life in the trenches. Not necessarily, we can't all be Supreme Court justices or presidents of the United States or Congress people, but we can all love the person who's near us and try to help build that culture of life with them. Sister, I was just thinking about Lily. We tend to think certain things about who's pro-life, and it might be like the young people will be more pro-choice and the older people will be more pro-life. But there she is as this young person who came to Christ and realized that her parents were wrong about their support for abortion. Do you see this more and more young people kind of realizing, hey, this is not what we've been told that it is?
Absolutely, completely. Yeah, I see many young people on university campuses who, once they begin to understand the meaning of their lives and know God, their vision is really transformed and how they look at other people. I do find that young people are very open to life because in many ways they've lived through or they've suffered the consequences of some of what the Roe v. Wade decision has done. They've lived in families with divorce. Right. They've been able to do whatever they wanted. The culture has told them that. And they know that there's an emptiness in there. They've realized there's an emptiness. And when they're presented with an alternative, a different story, that their life has meaning in God, oh my gosh, it's powerful to watch because they want that. And they know that they're worth more than what the culture has offered.
You're welcome to call and talk with our guest, Sister Maristella, 888-318-7884. Next hour, Stephanie Gray Connors will be here. I'm used to her pre-married name, but Stephanie Gray Connors will be here with us to talk about making pro-life arguments. Up next, call from Kim in South Dakota, listening on Real Presence Radio. Kim, thank you so much for your call. Go ahead with your question for Sister Maristella.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. So my question is, it's a difficult one. How do you lovingly approach even other Catholics who don't believe in the exceptions, rape, incest, for that abortion should be not allowed for those situations? Actually, just last week I talked to a fellow Catholic who believes that it should be allowed. So how do we really touch that lovingly without making it seem like a punishment for the victim of those kinds of situations?
Thank you, Kim. Sister Maristella?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Kim. And I think a lot of people think that, and many people have asked that question. I can just speak from what I've seen working with women who are pregnant and women who've been sexually violated. And I've seen the outcome of both instances where women who have been raped become pregnant and have chosen abortion. And then also other women who have heroically chosen life. And I can just tell you from my experience of talking with countless women on these issues is those who have an abortion often experience that abortion as a second violation to themselves, as a second violence. And the women who do choose life, maybe because they've had good supports or have a different vision or the right people were put in their path, for whatever reason, they heroically choose life. The life of that child ends up being the most healing thing from that violation. This new and beautiful thing that has come from them ends up transforming the meaning of the past and changing their experience. So I've just seen a number of times when women have chosen life after being sexually violated, and they've been blessed in profound and powerful ways. And those who have not, they suffer. They continue to suffer.
Kim, what do you think? Sorry, sister, go ahead.
No, that's all. Yeah, that's good for them.
Kim?
Beautiful. That was exactly a wonderful way to approach it so that they are, the truth of the matter is, rather than perpetuating the evil, it is redeemed in some ways.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it, that the redemption that can be brought through of it. And and I've also known children who've grown up and they were conceived in rape, and it's actually very amazing to hear them speak, because I've heard them say things like, the person who did that to my mother, I don't know him, but I know for sure that God is my father.
Wow.
God intervenes in a unique and powerful way in their lives when they're open to it. So, yeah.
Kim, thank you very, very much. We're talking with Sister Maristella from the Sisters of Life. You can find them at sistersoflife.org about being pro-life in the trenches this hour. 888-318-7884 is our number. Ed in Grand Isle, Nebraska, listening on Sirius XM Satellite Radio, Channel 130, EWTN. You are next. Go ahead, Ed.
Thank you, Sister, for taking my call. Years ago, Father Paul Marks told us that wherever contraception becomes widely used, abortion always follows. And I really believe that to be the case. And I'm wondering, should we be focusing maybe more preeminently on the sin and the evil of contraception, because it not only fosters abortion, but it seems to predicate a certain libertine lifestyle that I can do whatever I want to do.
No, that's a really great question. And you make a very good point that the widespread availability of contraception has led to abortion. I think the statistics and the numbers show that and prove that. I do think it's a great approach. And when women, for sure, what I've seen when women are educated on natural family planning and are taught the way to work with their cycles and their natural cycles, it's very powerful and even ennobling to them. They begin to have greater respect for themselves, and their husbands tend to have greater respect for their wives. It's a beautiful and transforming thing. So I think it's an important place to be in a very important field of work. I don't know that it's like where you can start there with everyone, but when it can be shared and people are open to it, it's a game changer, I think. Yeah.
Thanks, Ed. Appreciate that. Sister Maristella, our guest, we're talking about being pro-life in the trenches. You're welcome to call 888-318-7884. Not literal trenches. You don't do this in actual trenches. This is metaphorical, correct?
At this point, it's metaphorical. When I was in the Navy, it might have been more literal. Yeah.
Kelly in Saskatchewan, Canada, also listening to EWTN Channel 130 on Sirius XM Satellite Radio. Glad to have you, Kelly. Go ahead with your question for Sister Maristella.
Thank you, and thanks for taking my call.
Happy to.
It's something that hits close to my heart. But, Sister, I wonder if you've encountered people like me. I'm 60, and I regret my choice to sterilize myself when I was younger. I became Catholic 5 years later. But now, my husband and I, and actually he recently became Catholic, so, praise God, there's some beautiful things happened in our lives. But especially in my career, there are people, most people have children or grandchildren, even if they're pro-abortion, and we're kind of in the boat where we're pro-life with regrets, and it's a cross to carry. And, I didn't have all the information when I was younger, and there were certain family circumstances that contributed, when you're young and you don't know everything. I understand that, but it is, as you get older, it's very hard, and I hear people talking about it like it's a badge of honor that they're not having children. They're such an inconvenience, and they're in their 30s and 40s, and I want to get hold of them because I love them, and I want to say, you're going to regret this. I know you will. You may not understand what I'm saying now, but there will be an emptiness. God has filled that emptiness, for us and our friends and family with children. But boy, I think there's people out there that don't understand what they're in for when they close themselves off like that.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. Sister?
Oh, Kelly, no, thank you, first of all, for being so open and for sharing that. And I just want to really reverence that because, reverence everything you shared because, as you said, it's a great sorrow in your heart, and that God has brought you to the light and to the truth. And so thank you for your humility and sharing it with us. And also, I guess I just want to say, there's something very beautiful in how you shared it too, that it shows that you actually have such a maternal heart, that you have this goodness in you that, and a love for life and an appreciation for life. And so I would just encourage you and invite you to consider ways that you might be able to spiritually mother people around you. Your love is still meant to be very fruitful. The ways that your spiritual maternity continue to grow and you can have more spiritual children. And that being said, maybe when you do encounter a young woman in her 30s or 40s or 20s or whatever it is that sees children as a nuisance, if maybe there's a gentle way, without disclosing anything too personal, you could say, I wasn't able to have children, but at this point in my life, I can look back and I see things differently. I mean, that testimony, that sensitive way of sharing it could have a great impact on another young woman. And in that way, you may be a spiritual mother to this woman and potentially to her child. So,
what do you think, Kelly?
I think, thank you for saying that to me about, it's so funny to hear I have a maternal heart, so that's a great comfort, and thank you for that. And yes, I will try in my way. Sometimes we got to be courageous, right? And speak up. So maybe I feel like God's calling me in some way to do something. So you've just reinforced that. And thank you so much for listening to me and for reverencing my story, as you say. I really, really appreciate it. I feel like I'm heard, and it helps make me feel hopeful and courageous. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, God bless you. And I'll be praying for you that God will just magnify your love and show you how you have a maternal heart and that you are meant to be a spiritual mother to many.
Kelly, God bless you, and thank you so much for the call. You're always welcome to call again. We love hearing from people from Saskatchewan, Canada, most particularly because I get to say Saskatchewan, Canada. But we have to take a break. We will do that right now and be back with more on being pro-life in the trenches with Sister Maristella from the Sisters of Life.
Hang on, we'll be right back with more Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Do you love sharing the gospel and want to learn to be more effective? Join the St. Paul Street Evangelization online School of Evangelization. You will learn to build bridges of trust and make disciples by befriending strangers, proclaiming the gospel, inviting people to the church, and praying with others. We'll ask for a pledge of financial support, but if you are unable to give, we'll give you a membership at no cost. Find out more and get involved today at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
EWTN, teaching the truth.
I had called in last spring about talking to my parents when I was going to convert to the church and how to talk to them. They were not happy at all, but I was confirmed to the church at the Easter Vigil service, and we really don't talk about the topic, but our relationship is still intact, so that's a good thing. Just wanted to say thank you, and I still listen every day because I always learn something new.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I told you this was going to be a good Wednesday show. Finally, we've put together a really good Wednesday show. Second hour, Stephanie Gray Connors is going to be here with us and talk about how to make precise and helpful pro-life arguments. This hour, we're talking with our friend, Sister Stella. I always want to say Stella Maris. I don't know why, Sister. I get it backwards. I apologize.
It's okay. It means the same forward and backwards in Latin, and there's a lot of. You're on the West Coast. A lot of West Coast churches, Stella Maris, Maristella.
That's the problem, is because I know a Stella Maris church, and I'm stuck in it. Sister Maristella from the Sisters of Life here. You're welcome to call 888-318-7884. Before I go back to the phones, however, I do have to tell you this. We got a cool thing going on for Lent here, and Lent is coming up on us in a few weeks, and we're going to be giving or sending out an apologetics lesson each day of Lent, and you can sign up for that. You can just sign up and get this in your email inbox and help you kind of make progress in reflecting on your Catholic faith throughout the season of Lent. You can get that series by just going to Catholic.com or shop.Catholic.com, and there'll be a little spot where you can sign up, put your email in, and you will get your daily apologetics lesson all throughout Lent. Again, our number 888-318-7884. Sister Maristella, our guest. Up next is Noah in Westmont, Illinois, watching on YouTube Live. Noah, please go ahead with your question for Sister Maristella.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on. So I had heard a sermon lately that was speaking of a newer argument for abortion that has been recently promoted by a lot of people. And the argument was saying that it was acknowledging the fact that human life is human life at the instant of conception, but justifying it by saying that it doesn't matter if it's human life. Human life just has different values at different times. Like if it's young, it doesn't really matter essentially. So like we often argue that it is human life when it's at the instant of conception. But she was acknowledging that, and I was not sure how to respond to that the best way. I was kind of trying to formulate that. I was wondering if you might be able to help.
Yeah, sure. Well, that it sounds like someone willing to admit the obvious science that a baby is a baby, that this is a human, but saying human life doesn't have value it doesn't have the same value at every stage. How do you deal with that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. It's I suppose I would fundamentally just disagree with that, but I would kind of try and maybe if someone presented that argument, I would really want to sit with them and see why they believe that. And to question, it sounds like that argument is coming from a vision of the human person that says people have meaning and value based on what they can do or produce. But we know that's not true. And so to get to the heart of the issue that people were created by God with inherent dignity that cannot be taken away, and that remains until the end. Some people who are the most transforming in our culture I've seen in families are those who are handicapped or weak or vulnerable. In a very mysterious way, their presence within a family has an immeasurable effect that has the power to transform. So I think it's having a different vision of suffering, a different vision of life and of reality, actually.
Thanks, Noah. Thanks very much. I hope that's helpful for you. Of course, this always happens. You got a few minutes left with Sister Maristella, and I think it's now 1 million people on the phones. So let's go to Paige in Lawton, Oklahoma, listening on KOEG. Paige, go ahead with your question for Sister Maristella.
Hi, Sister. Thanks for taking the call. I would like to ask the question about how does one witness to the pro-life argument, for lack of a better word, argument, when your history or your past does not reflect a pro-life view?
Yeah.
In other words, my history is not a good example.
Mm-hmm. No, well, first of all, thanks for your question and thanks for sharing that. And yeah, your humility in recognizing that maybe you didn't always believe what you do now or live the way that the good news is that we're all sinners. Each one of us has not lived the pro-life message perfectly. So to have that beginning and that somehow something's happened in your life that has changed the way you view yourself and view others, I think you have a very important role in the pro-life movement. I think that's a very powerful witness to share that the way that your heart has changed, your vision has changed, your life has changed. That to me is really impressive. I would want to hear from you. I would want to hear what happened in your life to make that change. So, and to even admit in humility that you didn't always live that way, and maybe what some of the obstructions were, or how you were informed incorrectly as in your younger days. But I think you have a very important and essential role in the pro-life movement.
Okay, Paige?
Oh, thank you. I really didn't think I did. I have tried to put forth the arguments that the life in the womb is a human life, and the problem is that then why did I have the history that I have, and how can you say that when you weren't always that way? And yes, I know that people change, but it's very difficult to witness when you are complicit, so to speak.
Well, if I may, I want to interrupt what Sister had to say, but I'm thinking of Dr. Bernard Nathanson, who was an abortionist who became just one of the leading pro-life voices because he was able to say, I changed. Sister, did you want to add anything else?
Yeah, and I was just going to say Dr. Bernard Nathanson is a great example. I think of so many women who've had abortions who now witness to the sacredness of human life. I'm thinking of St. Paul himself was a great convert. He was persecuting Christians and his life was transformed. Much of the New Testament is his writings. So I think God works where the Lord says, St. Paul says, where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more. So you have a choice set of blessings coming your way, and to be open to those and to receive those and have confidence in God's work in you and through you.
Thanks, Paige. Got to keep moving because lots of folks on the line. Cheryl in Canton, Massachusetts, you are up next. Cheryl, go ahead with your question for Sister Maristella.
Hello. Yes, it's interesting. I just got in my car and heard this discussion going on. And just last week, I wrote a letter. I'm in the process of writing a letter that I plan on sending to college newspapers. And it comes about, and it's pro-life. And it's with COVID, in my neighborhood, I see these young adults who were living in New York or different places who've come back home to live with their parents temporarily. And they've come with their dogs. They're returning to their bedrooms. These are women and men that are in their 20s and 30s. And what I'm saying to these younger kids that are in college right now is don't be sold a bill of goods like your predecessors were, that you shouldn't have children, because you will end up being so lonely in life and miss out on so much. And I referenced that song the Beatles wrote so many years ago, Eleanor Rigby, All the Lonely People, where do they all come from? And that's what I'm seeing with these children. Instead of going off and having families that they can return to and build a family with, and all that brings, they're back in their childhood bedrooms alone without any special person to live with and to create a family. And it's just, it's tragic.
It does feel like a giant tragedy unfolding all across our society, where people have been convinced that that children are a problem in life to be avoided.
Mm.
Where they're
it's.
Oh, sorry, Cheryl. I think we got crossed up. We thought go ahead, sister. You were going to say something?
Oh, yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right that people. I think part of it comes down to this idea of suffering, because whenever you love a child or you bring a child into the world, while it's a great gift and a great joy, there's also sacrifice and suffering that's involved. And our world doesn't always value suffering or believe that it has meaning, but we know that John Paul II said it so well, that suffering unleashes love. And so I salute you. I think it's wonderful that you want to write to young people to tell them, to give them a different understanding, to help them to know that life is good, and that their love is powerful, and they can do something more than care for their dogs. They can bring other people into the world who will make it a more beautiful place.
Cheryl, thanks. One more I think we can get to. Rochelle in Oregon, listening on Modern Day Radio. Rochelle, you are going to have to be quick with your question, though, if you would like an answer from Sister Maristella.
Okay. Thank you for taking my call. Can you guys hear me okay?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so I'll try to be quick. My question is personal for me. I'm a new Catholic, but I think this might relate to other women. But I take birth control because of medical reasons, and I've had trouble with anemia, and I am interested in natural family planning. However, what kind of advice could you guys give for women that don't have a regular cycle, and how can they deal with that, or what kind of material or book could they go to get good information about this?
Okay, because that makes natural family planning harder, I would imagine. But Sister, do you know resources?
Yeah, I know. I do. I'm familiar with the ones in our area, but perhaps you might be able to find a physician in your area. And here in Denver, we have Bella Natural Women's Health, and they actually really work with many young women or many women in general who are in your circumstances who've been told they must be on contraception for some underlying issue. And what these really good pro-life doctors do is, rather than kind of coding it with birth control and contraception, they try to discover what the underlying issue is and really find actual healing rather than just prescribing. So I hope that you maybe could find a physician who might be willing to work with you to find alternatives to caring for your needs, because your body is something sacred, and it sounds like you want to choose life and have more children. And so I pray that you receive really good, proper care that reverences the dignity of your body.
If you want to email us at radio@catholic.com, Rochelle, we'll try to get you some resources as well, because we have Culture of Life Family Services right here in San Diego. And as Sister was saying, there are doctors who make this a priority of working with a woman's body instead of doing battle with a woman's body all the time. But radio@catholic.com, send us an email. We'll get you as many resources as we can. Sister Maristella from the Sisters of Life, thank you so much.
Good to be with you.
It's always
Thanks, Cy.
it's always great to have you here. You can find out more about what Sister Maristella and her fellow sisters do at sistersoflife.org. Sistersoflife.org. Coming up next, Stephanie Gray Connors. We're going to talk about making precise pro-life arguments. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. One of our best Wednesdays ever continues here at Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Thanks so much for being with us. We're really, really grateful that you would take the time to be with us. This hour, we're going to talk about how to argue pro-life. Our number, 888-318-7884, how to make arguments that are effective and helpful to people. 888-318-7884. Our guest is Stephanie Gray Connors, the internationally renowned pro-life speaker and founder of Love Unleashes Life. Stephanie's also the author of Start With What? 10 Principles for Thinking About Assisted Suicide, and Love Unleashes Life, Abortion and the Art of Communicating Truth. Stephanie, I got to make sure I'm going to say all your names today. There's more names than there used to be. Stephanie Gray Connors, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me on. I actually think this is my first time back on the show as a married woman.
Yes, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
In addition, I probably should mention, because lots of people will not know this, Stephanie also plays the ukulele.
I know. I was wondering if we were going to go down that path, and now I realize I didn't put my ukulele right next to me. Maybe on the break I'll go get it.
All right, because we enjoyed how you serenaded us last time at the breaks. Our number is 888-318-7884, 888-31-TRUTH. And as we continue this week, as the anniversary of the Roe versus Wade decision approaches, we are doing some counter-programming, and we are talking with, and thus far, have I led you astray? I said this is what we're going to do this week, and it has been true. We are talking with some of the smartest and most well-grounded and helpful, wise women in the world as we talk about issues confronting women today in a way that maybe you probably wouldn't hear on CNN. Maybe you wouldn't ever hear it on Fox News. Maybe you wouldn't hear it anywhere else if you weren't listening to Catholic media, Christian media certainly as well. 888-318-7884. So, Stephanie, if I wanted to get you right down, get to the nub of the matter, is arguing important? For a pro-life person, or is it more important that I just, be a good example and that kind of thing?
I wouldn't say it's one or the other. It's both. We need to be a good example. We need to have a winsome personality that draws people in a very magnetic way. But once we draw people in, if there's no logic behind any claims we make, then the people we've drawn in are going to walk away. And so once we draw people in with that winsome disposition, then we want to be able to argue well and to be persuasive and have reasons that back up the claims we're making that are grounded in science and grounded in philosophy and grounded in, human rights doctrines and the belief in human equality. And then that will be extraordinarily compelling to someone because they see, okay, this person makes sense and they're nice about it. They're not being rude. And so when you can put those things together, then it makes for a more likely result of someone coming over to the pro-life perspective.
How often do you find when you're arguing, when maybe you want to share the pro-life perspective, somebody has said something that the response is just disinterest in what you, this is the, I have to kind of admit, this is the thing that I find the hardest, the dismissal of, yeah, whatever, that kind of thing.
Sure. That does happen sometimes, and it is very frustrating. It makes me understand why in Revelation God says, be hot or cold, but lukewarm, and I will vomit you out of my mouth. And it is very frustrating to deal with that type of indifference or lukewarmness on an issue that really matters. As I often point out to people, if I'm wrong in my claims that abortion kills a human being, then I'm doing a great disservice to women who have a right to abortion. But if the other side is wrong, then they're doing a massive disservice to the preborn child who's being denied their right to life. So it isn't really an issue where you can have neutrality or indifference. It's either really right or really wrong. And so people who want to stay in the middle are in the most unreasonable position, if you ask me.
888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. If you'd like to talk about how to make precise pro-life arguments, you're welcome to call. If you're not a pro-life person and you'd like to challenge one of those arguments, you're welcome to call. But anybody's welcome here. I've never known Stephanie Gray Connors, I got them all in there, to be scared of anybody. And you're kind of fearless, and it's a fascinating quality. Like, you just don't seem fazed by any argument.
Well, part of it certainly is prayer. Part of it is study. I have spent my life immersed in the pro-life arguments, and so I'm just very familiar with a lot of what I hear. And where there's familiarity, there's comfort and there's confidence. So those certainly play a role. But there have been times, in my career where I found myself thinking, oh, shoot, what should I say? What's going to be a really quick, compelling response? And praying for divine inspiration because I didn't always have it. So I've heard it said that courage is not the absence of fear, but a will to do what's right in spite of your fears. So I wouldn't say that it's necessarily, I'm always fearless, that there's nothing I'm afraid of, but that I have a sense that I have to rise above the fear, even when it's present. And when you do that, then you do often come across fearless because there's a degree of confidence.
888-318-7884, the number. Already folks on the line, and I do think this is going to be a busy hour. It usually is when Stephanie is here with us. So you're welcome to call, and there are still a few lines open, but they will get busy as we go. Stephanie, feel ready to go straight to the phones?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, Tom in Omaha, Nebraska, listening on Spirit Catholic Radio. I got to say, Nebraska stepping up today. Lots of calls from Nebraska. Tom, go ahead with your question for Stephanie Gray Connors.
Thanks so much. I was at a Catholic pro-life conference thing, and the speaker said, well, the one thing about abortion is that these babies all go to heaven. And I've heard other people say that too, as though, well, abortion really is not all that terribly bad. I mean, the baby goes to heaven, so, that's where we all want to go. Well, I don't believe that's church teaching, and I think I read somewhere that theologians are saying, well, no, it's more like the case of the angels. You have to make a conscious decision for God or against God, and that an unborn or something like that will have that opportunity. So tell me what you think.
Sure. I mean, Sai, you can weigh in on this too. I do know that, especially if you go back into older documents from various theologians, that there seems to be some degree of debate. Is there some type of limbo that aborted children go to? What I understand it to be, at least a reasonable position one can hold, is that we entrust the aborted child, or any child that maybe is a newborn baby that dies or is killed, we entrust these children to God's mercy. I understand it to be that they would go to heaven. I can't imagine them not being in eternity with God. So that is the position that I would hold. There probably are other people that would hold different views, but I entrust them to the mercy of God, that even if they've not been baptized, even if their parents wouldn't have had the desire for baptism because they might not have been religious, and then they aborted them, didn't even think they were human, that regardless of that, they are human, and had they been given the choice, they would have chosen God. So the perspective I hold is that those children are in heaven.
However, this is not a good argument for abortion, because it's like saying, well, if I'm a murderer, many of the people that I murder, they go to heaven, so the murder is not so bad. Well, actually, that's not really up to you, and killing is bad. Killing people, innocent people, is bad, whether they go to heaven or not.
Right, and I think certainly from a perspective of, does the potential unknown about where these children go determine whether it's right or wrong to kill them? Well, no, because, it's not like, for example, if you see a child drowning, but the child,
just got
has
baptized.
been baptized and loves the Lord, right? That we say, oh, well, let the child drown because they're going to go to heaven. And you know what? We're going to spare them potentially a life of suffering and intense sin when they're an adult. So let them drown so they go to heaven because we know that, and we would never say that, because we know regardless of the status of an individual soul, we have a responsibility over the status of our soul. And that means we have to do that which is right and good, and ending the life of an innocent human being is the opposite of right and good. It's wrong and evil. So therefore, my responsibility is to not commit evil acts.
Tom, thanks for getting us started. We're looking for, we're accepting any question you have about making a good pro-life argument with one of the world's best at making good pro-life arguments. Stephanie Gray Connors is our guest, and you're welcome welcome to call 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. We're going to take a quick break and come back to the phone lines, so go ahead and dial and we'll get you on. But before I send you, I do want you to know that in addition to the daily Lenten apologetics notes that you can get from Catholic Answers, we do have a free ebook for Lent. 20 Answers Lent is available for free right now at shop.catholic.com.
Stay with us for more Catholic Answers Live.
The Aquinas Writing Advantage program is part of Homeschool Connections' set of online courses for your Catholic homeschool. Homeschool Connections' website is homeschoolconnections.com.
He was a Jesuit, a cardinal, and a doctor of the Church.
Matthew Bunson and the Doctors of the Church.
St. Robert Bellarmine is honored for his immense contributions to theology, including helping to draft 2 important catechisms that defended church teachings during the Protestant Revolt. Pope Clement VIII named Bellarmine a cardinal because, as the Pope put it, Bellarmine had not his equal for learning.
For more about the Doctors of the Church, visit doctorsofthechurch.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. This hour we're talking about how to argue pro-life. You're welcome to call 888-318-7884. If you want to find out about our guest, you can go to loveunleasheslife.com. She is the founder of Love Unleashes Life. She wrote a book called Love Unleashes Life. She wrote another book called Start With What? 10 Principles for Thinking About Assisted Suicide. That is Stephanie Gray Connors, our guest. 888-318-7884. Up first, this segment, Imelda in Georgia. Imelda, you there with us?
Hi.
Hi, Imelda. Go ahead with your question for Stephanie.
Yes, so I'm defending for life, and my friend was saying that Planned Parenthood supports other benefit for women. So how do I guide her to the essential point to get her to see that pro-life is the right way to stand?
Yeah, okay, so she's saying that Planned Parenthood provides other goods for women, that you should consider those goods. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Stephanie?
Sure. So if your friend is saying that, I would say ask her a question. I would say, well, part of what Planned Parenthood provides, would you agree that it is abortion, even if they do other things? And the moment she says yes, then I would say, okay, and what are the abortion procedures? How do they actually work? What does Planned Parenthood do when it is, doing an abortion on a child? And see what she knows. And then if she says, well, I don't know anything about the procedures, then I would say, okay, well, are you open to, looking at that with me? And you could go, for example, to Live Action's website, where they have a former abortionist, Dr. Anthony Levatino, who walks people through a first trimester section abortion, a first trimester medical abortion, a second trimester abortion. You could even go to this website that's not pro-life related at all, called Nucleus Medical Media. And so if you're going to have a surgery, you can type in the type of surgery you're having, and they show you what that looks like and how it's done. And so that website has information on first trimester abortions and later abortions as well. So once you take her through that, she's going to see a very tiny human being. She's going to see that the procedure involves a suction tube which rips the body parts of that human being off, the arms, the legs, and so forth. So then I would ask her a question: how would it be good to classify Planned Parenthood as an ethical organization if part of what they do is that? And see what she says in response to the facts of the procedure in that question.
Imelda, how's that?
Oh, thank you so much. I think I can take her through that.
At the break, the medical services website, we'll put that on our show notes. And anybody who wants to go there, you can just visit our show notes and find that website. Our guest, Stephanie Gray, we're talking about making pro-life arguments with Stephanie, 888-318-7884. And what I said was Stephanie Gray Connors. If you heard me say Stephanie Gray, what I meant was Stephanie Gray Connors. We go now to Boise, Idaho. Karen in Boise, Idaho, listening to EWTN on Channel 130, Sirius XM satellite radio. Karen, go ahead with your question for Stephanie.
Hi, Stephanie. I remember seeing you when you were here in Nampa a couple years ago.
Oh.
Yeah, so I was out at Planned Parenthood this morning with a few girls, and we're sidewalk counselors, and we don't have an opportunity here to get close to the door. They've got it fixed, so we're kind of out on the street, and rarely all we do is get a chance to talk to somebody driving by if they will roll down the window and talk to us. So one of our signs, because we often talk to women who are there for birth control, we have a sign that, because we had Dr. Lanfranchi out here to lead a seminar for us, and the sign says the pill contributes to cancer, to breast cancer. And this lady stopped and rolled down the window and said, "Shame on you for lying to women. That absolutely is not true." And of course today I know the things to do and I didn't do it, I blew it. So what would you say?
Yeah, good question. Well, first of all, thank you for witnessing, because certainly it's not easy to do that, and especially, I'm assuming it's cold there in Idaho, so God bless you for your witness. In terms of when you have a sign up that someone completely rejects and says that is false, if they're willing to actually stop and engage, and that's debatable, but if they are, you want to ask a question to try to draw them into a deeper conversation. So on what basis is this false? So before you try to launch into making a backup defense for the claim that there's a connection between birth control and cancers, is to make them defend their claim that it's wrong. You could ask them, for example, well, what does contribute to breast cancer? What are the factors that influence whether a woman is at an increased risk? And if that involves, for example, high exposure to estrogen, then could that be something that leads us to go, could this be a factor in chemical birth control where she might be getting a very high exposure to estrogen, for example? But instead of trying to defend everything you want to defend, it would be more start with questions, draw information out of her, and then gradually insert your facts and evidence. For myself, I have more information in my own mind of the link between abortion and breast cancer than I do with birth control and breast cancer, so I can't give you the specifics on what more to say other than to ask questions to bait her in deeper into the conversation, and then with the info you have, making sure whatever claims you make, you do have info to back that up, then gradually, slowly volunteer that information and those facts.
Karen, what do you think?
Yep. Oh, she's right. I know that I should have asked a question and I blew it. So,
well,
but the fact that you are out there puts you so far ahead of the rest of us. God bless you for that work, Karen. And Stephanie, you wanted to say?
Sure, yeah, and I think, certainly it's important to recognize when we don't do as good a job as we think we could have done. So, hey, we want to realize, okay, I could do better next time. That's good because that will motivate us to be better next time. But I wouldn't beat yourself up about it and completely think that everything was destroyed, because first of all, you were there, as Sai said, so you were doing much more than most people. And secondly, you at least made the declaration. She rejected the claim that you were making, but that information you brought forward to the public. So those are steps in the right direction. Can we always improve? Often, yes, and I'm glad you recognize there's room for improvement, but I wouldn't beat yourself up.
Thanks, Karen. I appreciate the call. Our guest is Stephanie Gray Connors. She's the founder of Love Unleashes Life. You can find her at loveunleasheslife.com. She's also the author of 2 books, Start With What? 10 Principles for Thinking About Assisted Suicide, and Love Unleashes Life, Abortion and the Art of Communicating Truth. We go now to Ori in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, listening on Oklahoma Catholic Radio. Ori, go ahead with your question for Stephanie.
Hi, thanks for having us on the radio. I've just got a quick question about assisted suicide.
Okay.
I didn't grow up Catholic, and so it wasn't a big deal. It's just not something that we talked about. I mean, it wasn't something I was formed in to have an opinion about. And as I've grown in my Catholic faith, it's obviously something very important as a moral issue. Now, my question is someone who's on life support and has, I guess, lack of a better term, quote unquote, no quality of life, is turning off the life support considered assisted suicide?
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ori.
Yeah, good question. So I would start by saying that when it comes to how we define someone and whether they have a quality of life, we have to realize the quality is our life. In other words, that we are valuable because we are made in God's image, that we are members of the human family, the one and only creation that Jesus died for, right? He didn't die for dogs or cats or fish, but he died for humans. We're that valuable. So even when we're sick, even when we're disabled, even when we're elderly, we don't lose our value or our quality as human beings. In terms of whether taking someone off life support is ethical or not, a more foundational starting point in answering that would be to get across the principle that it's always wrong to directly and intentionally end the life of an innocent human being. So we recognize when we're against assisted suicide that that death is a part of life. So I'm not against death. I mean, I am insofar as that God never wanted death. It was we humans through Adam and Eve's sin that brought death into the world. But so as a result of that, I have to accept that death is a part of life. But what I can't accept is killing being a part of life. So even though death is going to come knocking eventually, I may not commit homicide or I may not commit suicide. So once we acknowledge that, then the question becomes, when someone is very sick and they're needing a lot of different medical interventions, how do we determine whether they are truly at the end of their life and death is coming knocking and we can't stop it from opening the door? Or when it's possible that what interventions we do could actually keep death away and preserve their life. And so what theologians and philosophers often do is look at a particular intervention in light of a very particular patient and ask themselves, is this intervention I'm doing proportionate or disproportionate? And what that simply means is, if it's proportionate, it's not excessively burdensome and there's a hope of benefit. But if it's disproportionate, then it's excessively burdensome and there isn't a hope of benefit. For example, someone could have cancer and try chemotherapy because they think, hey, there's a great likelihood this is going to kill the cancer. But they do multiple rounds of chemo, it doesn't kill the cancer. There comes a point where you say administering more chemo is disproportionate because it's excessively burdensome, it's not going to kill the cancer. So we can reasonably stop the chemo, not because we're trying to kill the person, but because we can't save them from the cancer killing the person. And so in the same way, when it comes to machines and different interventions that are done, the medical team needs to evaluate, if we continue this, is this showing that there's going to be some benefit to the patient without being excessively burdensome? In some cases, you will conclude this is excessively burdensome with no hope of benefit. We can withdraw this particular medical intervention. But in other cases, based on how the body is reacting, it might be very proportionate to continue on with that medical intervention. So you have to determine it on a case-by-case basis, but what is always consistent across the board is we may never commit homicide or suicide. We may never end someone's life, and we're constantly trying to figure out if they are at their end or if it's still possible to save them.
Ori, a lot to process there. How did that settle in with you? What do you think?
I think that's a lot. I guess it made me think of another follow-up question. Do not resuscitate. Some patients are on do not resuscitate after, if something happens. Where is that in regards to the proportionate or disproportionate
right
actions?
Okay, Ori, I'm going to let Stephanie answer. Stephanie, just before you do that, I want to tell Ori, when this conversation with Stephanie is done, please stay on the line, because we have a little tiny booklet called 20 Answers End of Life Issues, and I want to send it to you so you have it there in your hands to reflect on it. And we can send books to Oklahoma, so just hang on when Stephanie's done. But what about these do not resuscitate orders, Stephanie?
Yes, so another good question, and it's not something that we can say across the board you should always have or you should never have. It's determined by how a very particular person's body is doing. For example, in very elderly people, if you were to resuscitate, you can cause a lot of damage. You can break bones, which can lead to other problems, and it might be determined that that is too aggressive or excessive in a particular patient's situation. But in another patient's situation, it might not be that case. So as Cy said, please stay on the line to get that booklet. And the other thing is, he mentioned I've written a book on assisted suicide, and I actually address the issue of DNRs and proportionate versus disproportionate. So if you go to loveunleasheslife.com and look up the Start With What book, then that has information for you as well.
Ori, thanks so much. And you didn't tell us how long you've been a Catholic, but welcome home to the Catholic Church. We're glad you are. And call anytime. We'd love to have your call. Stephanie Gray is our guest. Love Unleashes Life is her website, loveunleasheslife.com. Do you, just reflecting on what Ori just said, we usually kind of put the pro-life issue on the beginning of life, but it's growing at the end of life, isn't it?
It is, sadly. I mean, if only we had a greater respect for life and for valuing the most vulnerable in our society, but sadly we don't. And so I think, in a sense, the increasing acceptance of assisted suicide is related to the acceptance of abortion, where we've told a whole generation, if you get in the way, I'll kill you. And that's what assisted suicide is. Now that generation grew up and is saying, I'll kill you if you get in the way.
Tough points, but very cogent insight, I think. We'll take a quick break, right back with more Stephanie Gray, 888-31-TRUTH.
Catholic Answers Live. We're here for you.
To many people, even many Christians, purgatory is a fantasy, or worse, a wicked lie invented by the church to make salvation complicated and keep people in fear. But I'm here to tell you that purgatory is fact, not fiction. The Bible supports it, Christians have historically believed in it, and it makes theological sense. In my new book, Purgatory is for Real, I provide the evidence and reasoning to help you understand this controversial doctrine and demonstrate how it's actually a joyful, hopeful reality, not something shadowy and mysterious, but a sign of God's love and mercy. To get your copy of Purgatory is for Real, visit shop.catholic.com today or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
If you spend any time on Twitter, Facebook, or mainstream media, you're probably familiar with the litany of slogans that skeptics employ to rescue you from the foolish belief that God exists. The constant onslaught seems to leave people with the idea that they have no alternative but to embrace atheism. How can a Christian respond? In One Less God Than You, John DeRosa breaks down 20 of the most common atheist challenges and shows you how to craft effective answers. Atheism is more aggressive and widespread than ever. Read One Less God Than You and prepare yourself to respond with the joyful truth that God is real. To get your copy of One Less God Than You, visit shop.catholic.com today or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live on this fantastic Wednesday of just magnificent conversations about life. It's always great when we have Stephanie Gray Connors with us from Love Unleashes Life. I do strongly suggest you visit her website, Love Unleashes Life, and find out what she does. Get her for a speaker or wherever you are. You've spoken all over the world, haven't you? You've been all over.
I have. I mean, COVID kind of put a damper on that, but
well, yeah, for everybody. Yes, that's true. Yeah, for everybody.
But yes, all over the world.
Do you find are attitudes different as you go around the world, or is everybody now caught up because we have Netflix everywhere and we have CNN everywhere, where it's all basically one big culture?
Yeah, it really is that. I've been to Latin America, I've been over to Europe, and of course North America, and I find the arguments are all the same. And often I found, especially when I was in Costa Rica speaking, a lot of the students asking me questions would speak of their professors who had studied in the United States and then returned to Costa Rica, and they were imparting all the pro-abortion ideology that they'd learned and arguments of people like Judith Jarvis Thompson and so forth. And so I was hearing the exact same stuff I hear here and then equipping them for what to say back.
So I would just like to apologize to the people of Costa Rica. All people in Costa Rica that are living there. I apologize that we sent you college professors. We could have sent you something better than that. 888-318-7884, the number. Craig in Yuma, Arizona, you are next. Go ahead with your question for Stephanie Gray Connors.
Hey guys, good evening. Good to chat with you. Actually, while waiting, I had two comments. First, my question was related to the guy who you just spoke, but then I also wanted to comment on the lady who called in earlier about the sign.
Do you just want to take over the whole show, Craig? We could just do Craig commentary from. All right, I gotta go home.
He's got a great accent.
I know he's got a really good accent.
Is that South African?
Yeah, he's our neighbor over there in Yuma, Arizona. I say, you know what? I'm going to go home.
It is actually South African. Good call on noticing it. And I'm impressed with your hosting. I think you struck a great balance. Been listening to you.
Well, thank you. Now you take over. Now you're the host.
Well, the first thing was, maybe I should on the outset. I'm not pro-life, but I'm a little more in the middle. But the lady who called earlier about the sign, I think you should call out up front. The pill has never been found linked to cancer. It's prescribed to teenagers for acne, as well as the pill. And I think you guys let her off a little easy there. I understand the point you're making about understanding where people are coming from, but when something like that comes across your desk, I think you have a right. You have a responsibility to set her straight. And I'm sure you know this, Stephanie.
Stephanie, did you want to respond to that?
Can I respond before you go to the next one?
Oh yeah, sure.
Sure. So what I would say is that although I myself am not well equipped to defend the claim that she made, I am aware of the physician, Dr. Lanfranchi, I believe is how you pronounce her name, who had come and spoken and provided that information. So if you look up information, Dr. Lanfranchi and birth control, cancer risks and links, she will have more information there. A second point I would just make to that is when it comes to things like birth control usage, I think whenever we ingest anything in our body, we want to ask ourselves, am I taking this in so that I'm correcting a pathology to make my body work as it should? Or am I taking it in to take my body as it is and ought to be working and then stop it from working in the way it should? So the reality is when a woman is going through puberty and then is in her fertile years, she has a body that's working correctly, which is why if she struggles with infertility, she's going to go to her physician and say, there's something wrong, I can't get pregnant. So her monthly ovulation, her monthly period, all of this is a sign that her body is working right. What birth control does is it involves ingesting a chemical into a healthy body and suppressing that healthy function from working the way it should. And actually what the birth control pill does is it tricks the body into thinking it's pregnant so that you don't ovulate. So like, for example, I'm pregnant right now. I'm not ovulating because there's a baby in my body, and Sai is very excited by that.
I didn't know. Congratulations.
But I'm not ovulating anymore because I'm pregnant. And so what the birth control pill is, it mimics the situation of my body so that a woman no longer ovulates, and that total throwing off of her natural hormonal environment is naturally going to have an effect on her in various ways. So I would just say that in general terms, something to consider. But you did have a second point, so go ahead.
Yeah. Well, sure. And in general terms, I think we accept this in many cases and places with regards to ingesting a chemical. Like, for example, when you twist your ankle or something, you take an anti-inflammatory to stop the inflammation, which is disrupting the body's normal response, which is the inflammation to protect it. And we do similar things with steroids and other drugs that we give people because we understand that there are consequences, but we have reasons and good justifications for doing it. And if we can show that they're not harmful, it can be really useful. So, sure, I get your point, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily wrong by any means. So then my second point was more related to, I feel like the pro-life arguments and discussions are so myopic that it's just around the birth. And it's not about the family, it's not about support for the woman, it's not about support for community, It's not about involvement of the father. It's just about this act of like the child being born. And I feel like we should have these conversations be more centered around, well, where does the responsibility fully lie here? What does it mean to be pro-life? It means that you are fully embracing it in all forms, which means you're going to support these people when they are having the child. You're going to provide them with childcare. You're going to make sure that where we just draw it short and we say it's all about the baby and that's it.
All right, but I think we got the point. You dropped out just for a quick second there, but you get the gist of what Craig is saying.
Sure, yeah, there was just one little pause. So what I would say in response is, yes, it is good and proper for us to make sure that we help people who are in need. And what I would suggest is if you look up kind of the background of the pro-life movement and various pro-life groups in each state, that there is a lot of work being done by nonprofit pro-life organizations, charities that don't get government funding like Planned Parenthood does, and they are working to help women. They offer maternity homes for pregnant women. They offer parenting classes if they don't choose adoption and instead they're going to parent their child. And there's so many pregnancy centers that work with women beyond giving birth. There's also a great order of nuns in New York and other places now called the Sisters of Life. And even in one of their convents, they allow pregnant women to live with them, and then up to a year after the child is born, and it's during that period where they work with the woman to help her get on her feet with a job, with further education. So they're not just giving her a fish, but they're teaching her to fish. So you are right to want to see that these things are happening. And the good news is, I can tell you, these things are happening. But then from a perspective of whether abortion is right or wrong, whether those things are happening or not, that's a totally separate issue. So for example, if I say rape is wrong and I'm a mean, terrible human being, that doesn't make my position on rape incorrect. It just means I might be a bad person in other areas of my life. And so when someone says abortion is wrong, if they do nothing to help a woman in crisis, it doesn't follow their position is invalid. Their position would only be invalid if they don't have solid evidence to back up the claims that they're making. But as long as science says preborn children begin their lives at sperm-egg fusion, that they're human if their parents are human, that they're alive if they're growing, and science has established all of that, then it follows that if we believe in human rights and if we believe in human equality, then we ought to protect the youngest among us, the most vulnerable among us, which is preborn children, whether or not we do nice things in other parts of our lives. But yes, by the way, we should do nice things in other areas of our life.
Craig, thanks very, very much. Actually, I really enjoyed that conversation. I wish we could talk with Craig more. I have to take a quick break. And just so you know, Stephanie, Sister Maristella was on the hour before you from the Sisters of Life. And she was talking about that that pregnant women are welcome to come live in the convent with them. Thanks, Craig. Thanks, Stephanie. We'll take a quick break. Right back with more of your calls for Stephanie Gray Connors on how to make clear, precise pro-life arguments. More of that right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
You're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
What do you do on Sundays? You go to church? No, I golf. Ever make a hole in one? No. Well, why don't you pray a little bit? Pray? Yeah, pray. Oh, why I need to pray? I could give you 50 reasons.
For more information on Mother Angelica, visit Religious Catalog at EWTNRC.com.
A lot of people think that street evangelization involves yelling out of a bullhorn telling people that they're going to hell. Not so with St. Paul's Street Evangelization. Our methods are non-confrontational and effective. We simply offer information on the Catholic faith along with rosaries, miraculous medals, and prayer. Pope Francis wrote about how beautiful it is to see street preachers joyfully bringing Jesus to every corner of the earth. Street evangelization is fun and fruitful. Join us today at streetevangelization.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Our number is 888-318-7884. We're talking about making precise pro-life arguments with our friend Stephanie Gray Connors. And I have to say, in our conversation with Craig that we just had a moment ago, a conversation which I enjoyed, and I wish we could have more conversations like that. It did, however, make us just bypass important news that was made. You're expecting your first child.
Well, I'm actually expecting my second child. Sadly, we lost our first baby.
Oh, I'm sorry, Stephanie.
Well, yes, it was very sad. But, the beautiful thing about our faith is that we were able to baptize our baby and bury our baby and have a funeral. So, that gave closure and consolation that one day we'll be reunited. But God is merciful. And right after we lost our first little baby, Lele, which that's the short for Laetificat, is what we named her. And Laetificat means I gladden and I make fruitful. I make fertile. And right after we lost her, we got pregnant again. So
praise God!
Yes.
How wonderful!
Yeah,
how wonderful! And when's the due date? When are you expecting?
August.
In August.
So I'm almost at the end of my first trimester. Feeling very sick. You're getting me at a good moment. People call it morning sickness, but it's like all day sickness. It's terrible.
Well, congratulations.
So you're getting me at a good moment.
Well, you're coming up. You're in a very chipper mood for someone who is experiencing day sickness.
I just ate, which helped.
888-318-7884. Oh, August babies are great. You're coming to the end of your pregnancy. It's 1,000 degrees out. Congratulations. Perfect timing. Beautiful.
Well, yeah, it's like in Florida. So that means like the whole third trimester is going to be
August baby in Florida. Yes. You tell him he better take care of you. Starting at from the end of May on, you get whatever you want. Eric in Wisconsin, you are up next. Go ahead, Eric, with your question.
Yeah, is the signal good? Can you hear me okay?
We can, yes.
Okay, good. So I was having this conversation with a woman I know, a fellow Catholic, and she says she is against abortion, but if we make it illegal, we'll be back to back alley procedures with coat hangers. And my response, wanted to see if you thought that was any good. I said, but assuming that's true, how can a woman choose if she doesn't know what she's doing? She needs to see the ultrasound. She needs to wait 24 hours to really think about it and understand what the procedure was, and then you can really make an informed choice. So was there a better response than that?
So I think you were moving in the right direction to want to impart that it's important for women to know about the development of their child. Where I would add some edits or tweaks is to convey that even if someone is informed, they may still make the wrong decision. So we wouldn't support them doing something evil even though they knew everything about the evil act. We have to say, yes, we need to educate and inform you, but there's still certain actions that we should never make lawful, even if someone might choose to break the law. So what I often do when this point is raised is I will ask someone this question. I would say, are you suggesting that if someone is going to get harmed in the process of committing an action, that we should always make their action legal just because we want to prevent harm to them? And if they say, yes, that sounds reasonable, that is what I'm saying, then I would provide a different scenario that shows they don't really hold that view. And I would say, okay, well, imagine this. Imagine you're a nurse in an emergency room and a man comes in and he has swollen, broken, bruised, bloody knuckles. And so you begin bandaging his wound and treating everything. And you say to him, sir, what happened that caused this? And imagine he said to you, I was beating my wife tonight and this resulted. So then I would ask the person I'm speaking with this question. Should we legalize spousal abuse and give men like that man boxing gloves so next time they beat their wife, they don't hurt themselves? Now the person is going to look at you like you're crazy and say, of course we shouldn't legalize that. Of course we shouldn't provide boxing gloves. And then you could say, okay, I agree with you, but here's what that proves. What that proves is there are certain behaviors that are so wrong that we do not think it's ethical to legalize those behaviors, even though someone who commits the behavior may get harmed. So in the same way, when a woman commits an abortion, what is she doing? She's committing a homicide on an innocent child. So yes, if it's illegal, she might get harmed when committing homicide, although I would make the point that even when it's legal, there's a risk of harm to a woman who has an abortion. But the point is that if what brings about her harm is the infliction of homicide on another human being, then it's never ethical to legalize that, because the behavior itself is fundamentally immoral. So unless the person can convince you that abortion isn't homicide, then it stands that it ought to be illegal, even if that law means some people might break it and some people might get harmed in the process.
And just because we're coming near the end and there are lots of folks on the line, Eric, I'm going to leave it there. I hope that that was helpful to you. Our guest is Stephanie Gray Connors. We're talking about making clear, precise pro-life arguments. And up next is Nono in Utah, watching on YouTube Live. Is this our old friend, Nono?
Yes, it is. Hi, Sai.
Hi, Nono. Haven't heard from you for a year and a half or something?
I'm so sorry. I'm going to blame it on the pandemic and say no more.
Okay, well, that's fine. But
congratulations on your pregnancy. And I know August babies are some of the prettiest ones. I'm totally not August baby myself.
Okay, Nono,
I'm
clearly
biased right now.
Right. And you were born in Nigeria. Is that correct?
I was born in Nigeria.
So that's hot in August too.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Go.
Well, yeah. So okay. So I got into one of those debates where supposed to be a casual, friendly debate, and it wasn't. and it was an abortion one, and then at some point the person try to ask questions, and it was very they'd bring up a whole bunch of inconsistencies. Their argument was falling apart, and then they felt very gotcha in a way. And my fiance, so that's my surprise, my own announcement to him.
Congratulations, Nono.
Congrats. Thank you. So my fiance, after the argument, told me, hey, you sound a little bit emotional there. And your arguments were consistent, but you sounded riled. Now, I didn't think I was riled, but then apparently that's what I came off as. And because this is something I want to go into as a public ministry, how do you overcome, someone brings up something and then you're immediately dismissive, or, because it is such an emotional and passionate topic, not getting worked up when you're talking about it? Because I didn't realize I was, but apparently I was. So
Right. Okay. Thanks, Nono.
Yeah, great question. And it's great that your fiance felt that he could tell you that. And even though you didn't recognize it, it often takes the observations of others to help us see certain parts of how we come across that aren't clear to us. So a few things I would suggest. First of all, as often as we can remember to keep inserting prayers in the silence of our hearts in our conversation to ask God to give us the right disposition, that's going to help. So to say things like, come Holy Spirit, Lord, that I may see how to best love this person, how to best listen to this person. Just short little prayers as you're waiting for them to finish a point that they're making. The second thing is to not take things personally. So yes, there's an understandable righteous anger we ought to have about abortion because it is ending the life of an innocent child who cannot defend his or herself. So we ought to have, there's a righteous anger. We want to remember at the end of the day, we want to protect those children. And to protect those children, we need to convince other people to protect those children. And we're more likely to convince other people when we are gentle and when we are kind in our interactions with them. So we want to get to that goal, which then means we have to restrain ourselves at times and kind of pull back from exposing that righteous anger that we have. The third thing I would suggest is to draw out of them what is behind the claims they're making. So not just deal with them on an intellectual level, but try to deal with them on an emotional level, not from your perspective where you're getting emotional and angry, but rather from their perspective to ask a question like, I'm curious, where does your passion come from? Or to ask a question like, how old were you when you first learned about abortion? And what did you think then? And okay, okay, and now I understand what you think now. So it sounds like your position changed. When did it change? And why did it change? And those types of questions are helpful because what it can draw out is potentially a personal experience that person has, which is making them make irrational claims. Even if they seem level-headed and you seem more impassioned, they still may be illogical in the claims they're making. And that could be grounded in the fact that they drove a friend to a clinic, or their mom had an abortion, or they themselves had an abortion. And we're not going to find that out by directly asking, but if we ask where their passion came from, or if they know anyone who had an abortion, that could cause them to share, which could then cause us to develop empathy for them, not changing our position, but changing our disposition because of what we've learned.
Okay, No.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the second part because I think part of what got to me was that this person does have a child who has physical disabilities and was approached by multiple doctors to abort her, and they chose life. So to me, hearing them defend that abortion still needed to be legal was what got to me. But thank you so much for everything. I'm very excited. I'm so happy to talk to you guys.
It's great to hear from you again, Nono. Did you ever get the book?
Well, you guys did send one to me here in the U.S., but not the one from Nigeria. No.
Yes, there is a Catholic Answers book somewhere in Africa looking for you. No, it's been years ago, Stephanie. I think probably 3 years ago, we sent Nono a book, and it when she was living in Nigeria, and it never came, and it still has not come. Her family's never seen it. We don't know where that book is. Nono, thanks. It's really great to hear from you. Congratulations on the engagement. Let's go to Jonathan in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, watching on YouTube Live. Jonathan, you're on with Stephanie Gray. You got to be kind of quick because we are coming up near the end.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, this is a really fast question. I just wanted to ask if Mrs. Connors could direct me to any resource, because I've been getting into a lot of dialogue with people on abortion, and I feel I can't really answer them adequately. So I was just wondering if you could
Jonathan, I'm going to let Stephanie answer. Any resources, any ways you can learn to make pro-life arguments?
Yeah, so certainly by going to my website, loveunleasheslife.com, clicking on the blog and looking for any article tagged with abortion, there's going to be information there. From my website, you can also see a talk I gave at Google headquarters, which is proclaiming the pro-life message to a non-religious audience coming from a human rights perspective. And so that's about a 45-minute talk that really encapsulates everything that you could say to make the pro-life perspective. There's also great resources on groups like Live Action, Created Equal, Justice for All. These are other groups that you can Google. But certainly by starting with loveunleasheslife.com, and if you have any questions, you can email us and we can send you more resources.
All right, so those will be listed on our show page, what Stephanie just said. Nick was typing really quickly. But also, I want to send you a book, Jonathan. We have a book that our own Trent Horn produced. It's called Persuasive Pro-Life. I just want to send that to you because we're allowed to send our own books out. I can't send you other people's books, but do check out Love Unleashes Life and check out all those others. And you're also welcome to call back anytime. Stephanie Gray, Love Unleashes Life is her website. She is the author of a couple of books. And one, Start With What? 10 Principles for Thinking About Assisted Suicide. Unfortunately, it seems to me, Stephanie, we're taking action all over the world on assisted suicide, but we're not thinking about it. Where there seems to be this... I don't know how these things happen. It's like it just creeps up, and all of a sudden, another country legalizing assisted suicide, and when it doesn't seem that they really considered it.
Right. And like abortion, assisted suicide is an issue where people are very much making an emotional reaction. And they're thinking, well, my grandma once really suffered, or if I was ever in that situation, I would really suffer. And there's no denying that when we suffer, that can influence how we view things. And so that's why it's so important we help people think and process more deeply on this issue so we get a right ordered perspective on suffering. And one of the points that I make in my book really briefly, because I know we're at the end, but as I draw on the insights of Dr. Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. He was a Holocaust survivor. He knew suffering directly. He knew suffering also as a psychiatrist with patients who went through a lot of suffering. And he said, despair is suffering without meaning. And so his point was, all of us will suffer if we're human beings, because suffering is part of the human experience. But we don't have to despair. And suicide or assisted suicide are examples of despair. And so the way to avoid despair in light of suffering is to find meaning. Can I find some good that can come out of this terrible evil or injustice that I'm facing? And so what we really need to do is help people find meaning. And so I think you and I have an opportunity next month to discuss this in more detail. So I look forward to that.
I look forward to it too. I'm glad you said that. Folks should look out for Stephanie to come back and be on with us again. Please visit her website, Love Unleashes Life. Stephanie Gray Connors, thank you so much. Really appreciate all you do.
Thank you so much. God bless.
Well, I promised it was going to be one of our best Wednesday shows, and it was one of our best Wednesday shows, so I keep my promises. I do want to let you know, because I forgot to do this before, we have some School of Apologetics courses on sale right now. You can go to Catholic Answers School of or just go to schoolofapologetics.com, schoolofapologetics.com. We'll see you again tomorrow right here, God willing, on Catholic Answers Live.